I can't tell you how good it feels to be back on stage with the Price is Right live stage show. That's right, a live touring version of America's favorite game show, and we're coming to a town near you. We're playing coast to coast, beautiful theaters with great contestants just like you, winning fabulous prizes, playing the games you've loved on television for years. Tickets are on sale right now, so get yours today. Don't wait. PriceIsRightLive.com. Hey, why not put faces to the voices that you hear on our podcast? Become a part of the conversation and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Todd Newton TV.
Welcome to the Host with the Most podcast, featuring fascinating people who are doing fascinating things. And now, direct from the Razzle Dazzle Studios, please welcome Todd Newton.
Always got a seat right up front for you. You've got that VIP thing working around here, man. It's Todd Newton at your service. Welcome to the Host with the Most Toddcast. It's my pleasure to join you each and every week without fail. I proudly sit here in this comfy leather executive chair. Temperature set at 77 degrees. The gold microphone placed in front of my face, and I speak with fascinating people who are doing fascinating things, allowing us to keep the art of conversation alive, and I owe it all to you. Thank you so much for subscribing and rating and reviewing the show. You can tell we don't do a lot of editing here. Otherwise, that little blurb would have been gone. Official website is toddnewtononline.com. That's where you can order my books and connect with us on our YouTube channel, my Twitter, toddnewtononline.com. And I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't really jazzed about this episode, if it wasn't one I was really looking forward to. Because it is. I have been wanting to speak to this gentleman for 4 or 5 years. He is the great Phil Hendry. Now, let me tell you about Mr. Hendry. Mr. Hendry is much more than a radio personality, although he's been heard all over the United States, Miami, San Diego, Orlando, Florida, New Orleans, Minneapolis. Mostly, he is recognized from his time on KFI radio in Los Angeles. He's far more than just an actor, although you've seen him in Modern Family, New Girl, Comedy Central's Drunk History, the new F is for Family on Netflix, the Bill Burr animated show. Heck, he was even in Team America World Police. But what he did behind the microphone is nothing short of genius. Now, I know occasionally I geek out when I talk about FM radio and my old radio days. Hey, when it's in your blood, it's in your blood. But Phil Hendry is an entertainer. And you don't become a successful syndicated radio personality without being really good. To say he's just a talk show host is like saying, Babe Ruth could swing a bat. Yeah. Larry Bird had a decent jump shot. Phil Hendry revolutionized talk radio at such a level that no one will ever be able to do what he does. He describes it as satire. When you tune into the World of Phil Hendry podcast, because he left radio in, I believe it was 2013, told radio to just bend over and stick a flower in it. He wanted to be his own boss. He wanted to be in complete control. A lot of radio guys and radio women will tell you that they just couldn't take it anymore. Having a program director or a general manager telling you how it should be done when they've never even been on the microphone. Phil's one of those guys. So he saw the digital platform and all that it offered, and he jumped on it. And his podcast is The World of Phil Hendry. He does a daily show, but he also offers a subscription-based package that allows you to access over 45,000 hours of his archives. It's great. Calls it a backstage pass, and you can get it on his website at philhendryshow.com. Last name is spelled Hendrie. So what does he do? When you tune in, he addresses the topics of the day, he and his panel. And his panel is comprised of people like Margaret Gray, General Galen Shaw, his producer Bud Dickman, Jay Santos from the Citizens Auxiliary Police, Ted Bell from Ted's of Beverly Hills Steakhouse occasionally chimes in. All of these characters with different personalities, different opinions, adding different ingredients to this big potluck stew that Phil serves up. But here's the catch. Each character is Phil. And for years, people that were listening to him on the radio had no idea. He'd be doing one of his characters, and he'd be working his audience up into a frenzy. And they would call the request lines or the talk lines, and they'd be arguing with someone that they thought was the owner of a grocery store, Bob Green, or Bobby Dooley and her husband, Steve. I'm telling you, man, if you're not already subscribed to the World of Phil Hendry podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows, wherever you're listening to me right now, you got to listen. And for a long time, he never told anyone what he was doing. I'm going to tell, as a matter of fact, we're going to bring Phil on right now, and I'm going to tell him how I was introduced to his show. And when I finally realized what was really happening, this is such a thrill. Please welcome to the host with the most Toddcast, Mr. Phil Hendry. I know that everyone has that story about when they found out about the Phil Hendry Show or caught on to the Phil Hendry Show. My story is better than anyone's. Are you ready for it?
Sure.
Okay. I'm hosting a corporate event at the NFL Hall of Fame, okay, with the late, great Larry King, all right? Yeah. And we're sitting there before it starts, and out of the blue, I've got a cup of coffee, he's got a cup of coffee, his handler was sitting there. Out of the blue, he looks over to me, he's on my right, I'm on his left, and he says, "Do you listen to Phil Hendry on KFI?" And I said, "I do, as a matter of fact." And he said, "That guy must be batshit crazy to have those voices in his." Did you know Larry King, or was he just a fan?
I didn't know Larry. I was at Miami. I was at WIOD in Miami, where Larry had a historic association for many years. I think in the 60s. And Neil Rogers, our midday host, knew Larry. And Neil was extremely funny every time he told a Larry King story, but it actually happened. And when you were there at the Canton Hall of Fame, man, I met Larry King, I should say, very, very, very briefly at the Beverly Hills Museum of Television and Radio in 99, where this would have been after 99, right? When you talked to him?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is within the last 7-8 years. Yeah.
This is crazy. I love it. But what happened was, we're down at IOD, and one day on the air on the Larry King Show, he's got Don Shula on, and all of us worked at the flagship Dolphin station in Miami, WIOD. Very unique in that most flagship stations that I've worked at, you don't diss the team, man. You only speak glowingly. I worked for the Falcons, WSB Radio, the Raiders at KFI. You always talked up the team. Well, at IOD, led by Neil, we ripped the team regularly, including Coach Shula, who was, great coach, but he was on his last legs. And so he was getting in front of our criticism. So there's Larry on his show with Coach Shula saying, "My old station there in WID is really ripping you a new one, aren't they? Huh?" Well, Larry, I don't want to say, yeah. So Larry's pissed off. So it turns out I had Larry's home number, and I called him pretending I was Bob Green, the general manager of WIOD.
Fraser. Oh.
No, see, the Fraser Foods character came from our GM.
Okay. So Bob Green called Larry.
Yeah, and by the way, Bob Green was probably the greatest general manager I've ever worked for. He's just kind of a GM that would sit down and show prep with you. That's how cool this guy was.
Wow.
He was a great guy. So I called, yeah, Larry, Bob Green, and I'd like you to come on the air with me. You took some shots, man. you took some bad shots. And I mean, and so all right, I'll come on the air with you, and he came on, he says, you were on with Coach Schuler, and boy, that hurt, man, that burned, and increasingly through the interview, Bob is now he starts to break down. And I'll tell you something, Larry, it hurt a lot, he's going, well, you going to cry now? Why don't you go on with Neil Rogers and cry with him? Yeah. Oh my God, it was funny. And that's on my that's about 99 best of CD, by the way, which I don't know where.
Listen, I've got all your best of CD. I got.
So that's essentially the story. And I think that's what Larry is talking about. And,
but I had never met Larry King. He didn't know me from Adam.
Just unburdened himself. He
was thinking about it. He was clearly sitting there thinking about it and just had to vocalize it. Great. So that leads it. So Phil, how would you listen? Everybody that's listening right now saw that you were going to be on, and they heard me plugging the show.
God, I want to just say one thing.
Yeah.
I really, really honor Larry for everything he achieved in his career.
Yes.
We took a few shots off, but I don't want to anybody to think I disrespect him. We just had a ball with him, and he was a consummate racer. I'm sure he got it eventually.
Yeah, eventually. As most do. I think that's the word, eventually. How do you throw it out there to people? Because it's much more than a radio show, obviously, and it's much more than, I know you describe it as satire, but it's such a high level of it. How do you tell people what you do for a living when you meet a nice lady at the bar?
I tell them I do theater. I tell them I'm a voice actor, that I do a kind of theatrical stylized presentation where I satirize modern media. And that doesn't mean hardly anything to anybody, really super into it, but it's about the best I can do, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I remember thinking one day when we were doing the radio show and we were getting all these people to call, that the radio show at its best transcended a radio show and became like a conversation you were eavesdropping in on. You weren't really sure, is this real or not? Is this did I just land on someone's phone conversation here? Is this actually a radio presentation? So I'm kind of proud of that. But I think that that's all it is. And it just comes out of my need at that point in my career to do something interesting, because I was so freaking bored, to be honest with you, with everything that I was doing.
Well, I remember when I first heard you, I was coming home. This must have been 2001. I was hosting a game show called Whammy for Game Show Network. And it had been a long day. And I was driving home all the way from Hollywood. I was living out in the marina at the time. And I came upon KFI, and the host, had a guest on the air who was telling new parents that drive-through fast food is just fine for young kids. It's fine. It's healthy. It's fine. It's fast. Why are you taking the time to prepare all this stuff? Just go through a drive-through and give the kids some French fries. It had to have been Bob Green, right? Wouldn't that have been a Bob
Green? Yeah. Probably try to sell the garbage he sells. Yeah. I could hear that. Yeah.
Great.
There's too much of this. I think we're too gentle with our kids. We got to toughen them up. Let them have some good greasy corned beef sandwiches, and I can hear them doing that. Yeah,
and that's the only thing I miss between your radio show and your netcast now, as you call it, is you don't get the angry mothers calling in to call this guy an idiot anymore.
But here's the thing that I think took place. First of all, Todd, radio changed to the point where I really don't think it exists much anymore, other than a sort of a platform for politics. The other thing that happened, and I blame myself for this, is we're living in a prank culture now. Everybody on YouTube's pranking everybody, and nobody knows who's serious anymore. And even at the highest levels of political office in the land, if a president misspeaks, he always turns around and says, "Oh, I was just kidding.
Yeah,
I was just joking. Get it? Don't you get a joke?" So everybody's goofing on everything. And I think if today, if you try to put a show like that on, maybe you could, but you would get 90% of the calls you'd have to screen. And you'd get a flurry of them would be people definitely trying to goof you or trying to crank you or trying to just doing so.
Let me do this. Let me take a short break. And when we come back here on The Host with the Most, Phil is going to talk about grabbing the moment, seizing the moment, when radio was primed for something brand new, something so innovative, but only he had the cojones to do it. And we'll also hear about some of Phil's most popular characters, how they are created, how they're performed, how they originate. Good stuff. His website is philhendryshow.com, and The Host with the Most Toddcast coming right back.
The tan tattooed connoisseur of conversation is back. This is the host with the most.
We're talking with the great Phil Hendry. PhilHendryShow.com is his website, and you can always see video of the interviews that we do here on the Toddcast over on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Todd Newton TV. youtube.com/Todd Newton TV. Phil, before the break, we were talking about timing and how commercial radio was right. It had opened a door for you to come in and create something totally new.
It was definitely a little moment in time. I think we hit it at critical mass right as the talk radio format was walking up to the cliff, looked one side, and was about to jump off onto the rocks below. We caught it right at that moment.
Yeah, and what was that moment? What was that moment where you said, tonight when I go on the air, I'm going to do characters and we're going to give it a shot? Was there one particular caller that called in and was so irate with your character that you knew you were on to something big here?
Well, actually, how it happened, Todd, I was the summer of 1990. I had just landed I left being a disc jockey. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to do talk radio. And the only station that would hire me, I had no experience, was this little station here in Ventura called KVEN. So I'm getting ready to go and do this gig, and I'm listening to the radio one day, and I hear a guy, in all seriousness, doing both sides of an interview with Saddam Hussein. But he was very serious. He was putting a filter on his voice to sound like Saddam Hussein, and then he'd come back, and the other thing. And I thought, I'm going to go on the air first thing Monday, and I'm going to pretend like I'm an Iraqi citizen who is in support of Saddam Hussein. I think that'll be funny. I'll say, in fact, Phil's on, Phil is not able to be here today because of whatever, he's getting the oil changed, on his Spitfire or something. So I get on there and I'm talking, Saddam Hussein, is a great president. And why do you put his face on toilet paper? For me, that's an insult, And suddenly my engineer started doing one of these and he's pointing at the phones. He said, we got people who want to talk to the Iraqi. That's how it happened. And I said, put them through.
Yeah.
Maybe another host might have said, "Oh, you better tell him I'm goofing and this is all made up." I decided, well, just go ahead. Let's see what they have to say.
So glad you didn't. And through all those years, you did wonderful things with the place for runaway kids in Hollywood. My friend's place.
Yeah.
Oh, that all of your CDs went there, but now the world is digital, man, and people can listen to you every single day. You put out a new show every day. Some of them are best ofs, but your website, you have over 40. What are you up to now? 45,000 hours.
40,000 hours of archived stuff from our radio show and from our netcast, and we got video casts there. We got a lot of stuff. Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good.
Thank you, man.
I know who my favorite characters are. Do you have some that? First of all, how did you choose who was going to be on the panel with you every day? How did General Galen Shaw and Margaret and Bud get in there? And why not some of the other guys? I would imagine those were coveted chairs to be part of the day.
There was yes, I heard from all of their agents, and eventually, I think, I don't know, man. They were the easiest ones to talk to, as goofy as that sounds. They would interact more easily with my persona. I had the Margaret, who was very deferential. She looked upon me as like a favorite son, but thought I was a kind of an idiot, and needed guidance. And, Phil, you're a wonderful man. You really are. And I know Mr. Newton would very much agree with this, that you're a talented man. But in many ways, Phil, you are what I call a slown. You're a slob and a clown put together.
The other day.
Yeah, I tweeted that one out.
Sloud. So great, man. My favorites. I love Margaret, of course. How can you not? But there's something about Bobby that I just want to see her at Butner Lake outside on a deck in those pants that she's always describing. And Steve, you do such a great job of creating visuals. I always picture Steve about 5 feet behind her and to the right.
That's right, man. Just kind of yelling out encouragement. Right. It's funny. That character started out in the spring of 97 when I was driving to work and I heard a woman on the air on some station. And they were, at that time, Los Angeles, the Valley was considering seceding from the city. The Fernando Valley was considering forming their own city. And so there's quite a bit of conversation. This woman called and said, well, my husband feels that it would be a mistake for the Valley to stay. And my husband also feels, so this woman, every other word was my husband feels, my husband feels. So I thought, well, I brought on Bobby doing that. And he's like, and my husband also. Yeah, we should secede. Yeah, we should secede. And somehow the dynamic changed sometime during the course of that spring and summer. It changed from Bobby doing what the husband wants to. She was the one, and he would, and she'd say, I got it, and continue on.
Have they all evolved over time a little bit? I guess they've had to, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, man. They have to. And, any actor will tell you, and even in voice acting, you build a bio of a character. I build these bios as I perform the character. It's, that's kind of cool. I think that makes sense. At some point, somehow we found that Steve's father died at Stillwater Prison in Minnesota. Right. Whatever that, I don't know what that was about.
Hey, that just pops up every now and then.
And stuff like that. And so, but to give you the real truth of Bobby and Margaret, they're both sides to the Phil Hendry's mom coin. That's my mother. My mother was a little bit sociopathic like Bobby, very condescending and yet very solicitous like Margaret. And all of a sudden she came flying out like, this way. At least it was like this and not like Norman Bates,
right?
Who put on mom's clothes,
right. Yeah,
but that stuff. So, that's the, and then General Shaw is parts of every dude that I grew up with in my neighborhood. I grew up in 1960s Southern California, and on your street in those days were Korean War veteran and World War II veteran dudes up and down the street, and they all had tats, but they were all very, now let me tell you kids something. You can play with your football there, but the property line begins here. Okay, these are my strawberries. You see, the ball just came in there. You don't want to do that. You have these guys just reading you the riot act on this shit.
The two characters that really get me every time, Ted Bell, who owns a steakhouse in Beverly Hills, and God, if you don't do a great job of just I don't know if I'm weird in the head, but whenever I hear these guys, I picture Ted. He's got perfectly pleated tan slacks on and just a little bit of a gut. His shirt's probably unbuttoned a little too far, as mine is, as I say that. But he's sitting in his back office just thinking he's the king of everything. And whenever he walks through the restaurant, everybody's probably just, oh God, he's here. He's here.
Well, he flatters a lot of them.
Such an ass.
I think Todd, can I take over? Go ahead. Todd, hi, Ted Bell. What I tell people is this: I'm Ted Bell. See? All you need to know. Or if you're standing, one time I told a cop, I said, hey, I'm Ted Bell. Don't believe it? Turn around. There's my billboard. And the cop, geez, it was beautiful. So yeah, he's the king. He thinks the king of Beverly Hills, whatever that is. And
yeah. And then the other one, the all-time favorite, is Jay Santos from the Citizens Auxiliary. It's that accent. It's that and it's also the way you formulate everybody around him. You allow the timing is just General Shaw will sit there just long enough until Jay says something.
Santos, that's it. I can sit here only this long. Now I'm coming at you. Yeah, that's another one. I was driving to work one day and I was listening to a dude who'd called one of our shows on KFI. And this was a guy from Baltimore who was, let me tell you something. What I'm hearing right now on your show sounds like a load of poppycock. Okay. First of all, this guy sounded very authoritative and just dopey with that accent. So, oh my God, I got to do something with that. And I didn't know for many years. I thought that was Western Pennsylvania because I had a buddy who was from somewhere near Pittsburgh, and he sort of talked like that, like how you doing, Phil? Good. But this was very much Baltimore, and I didn't know it until
Baltimore.
Yeah, about another 10 years. So he said, that's actually more of that's Baltimore. And I'm like, cool. That's the greatest accent. That's better than any New York accent I ever heard. It's
one, I admire you because, I started my career in top 40 radio too. And
are you from St. Louis originally?
Yeah, I grew up in St. Louis. Yeah.
That's a badass market, man. That's like one of the.
It really was. At the time, we had a heritage rock station, KC 95. We had the Talk KMOX, which was, so it was it was impossible to grow up there and not be influenced by so many of these people. But I love that you made that leap to the digital world. I am so high on this digital world. You're obviously at a much larger scale, but the freedom, I don't think there's probably anyone who appreciates and respects the freedom of doing these netcasts and podcasts more than you do, right?
Yeah. It's great. You can be as creative as you want. You're in business for yourself. You don't have a platform, a big company platform. But I started back in 2013 transitioning from my radio show, and I already had the website, and we already had a subscription model in place. So we just left radio and went all digital. And I've been kind of, if you'll pardon the expression, feeling my way ever since. But I do know
that's where Margaret would jump in and say, yeah, I'm leaving.
What are you feeling? I'm feeling my way, Margaret. It's all right. I have to do this, Phil, because I don't. No one does, right? But so I would say that, every day I just content, man. We're just content monsters. We just produce something and throw it on the damn platform, and we give people, something for their money, and we just hammer. And you never take yourself fortunately, I don't take myself that seriously, so that when we talk about, hey, subscribe to the Phil Hendrie Show, if you really want to throw your money away on something, might as well give it to me, and we've been doing that. And in the meantime, I've gotten a voiceover, really kind of transition from radio into voice acting and that kind of thing, man. So thanks for checking it. We're doing well. If you could send more of those filet mignon, that'd be great. In a truck, something up front.
It's the best value online, other than porn. Right? Yeah,
and it is. I truly believe it is.
Do you kind of? I imagine you do it the Larry David does it with Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's an outline, and you just allow yourself to kind of fill in the blanks. Is that the way you approach each show? Because you're very topical. I mean, everything's current.
Yeah, you gotta have to be well read and know what's going on. You have to care about what you're talking about, though. You can't just say, gee, today I better talk about this and that because it's in the news. You can't, that's never gonna fly. You have to really care about it. But you do prepare some kind of a document. And by that I mean just a sheet of paper with bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that you need to bounce through and get to the point. I think that's the way most improvisational performances go. Something is on paper, even some studios, even if you're doing an improv show, they'll say, transcribe the whole thing and give us the script, because they want to know exactly what was said. But at the end of the day, all you're doing is hitting bullet points, making sure you're sticking to the idea, and then you go. I prefer it, probably because I'm so brain damaged I can't remember lines anymore, so yeah.
Great stuff, man. Phil Hendrie Show, philhendrieshow.com is the website, the World of Phil Hendrie podcast. It's available everywhere. Listen, the value that you offer with that backstage pass for 45,000 hours. If somebody's just caught on to you in the past few years, they've got decades to catch up on. Decades.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, we believe that it takes you literally, if you didn't go to the bathroom, eat, or sleep, it would take you months, probably close to a year, to get through our whole archive.
So great.
It's a weird way of selling it, but that's...
Hey, man, listen, you've been a huge inspiration to me, and it really means a lot that you took time out of your day to join me here. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Todd. I appreciate it.
Give my love to Margaret and Bobby.
I will, man. Todd says he loves you, Margaret. Of course he does. Thank you, Todd. The best of luck.
Thanks for being part of the conversation. The Host with the Most is a registered trademark of Newton Media, LLC. All rights reserved. Don't forget to order Todd's books. Visit toddnewtononline.com today. The Host with the Most. There is only one.